So welcome everyone to this year's research pre-proposal solicitation meeting for the California Air Resources Board Research Program. We hold this meeting every year after the board approves our annual research plan. We're going to kick off the meeting first with some words from our division chief, Elizabeth Sheely. So I'll pass it over to Elizabeth.
Thanks, Sonia. And I just wanted to echo your welcome and thanks everybody for joining this meeting today. We've, as an agency, CARB's identified its research priorities for this coming fiscal year, so 23-24. And the research program is generally informed by our air quality and climate, informs our air quality and climate programs, provides that scientific foundation that is needed to move the programs forward. And the research projects we intend to fund this year were chosen through a publicly informed process and approved by the board at our January board hearing, which is on January 26th of this year. The projects cover topics related to wildfires, health analysis, climate, and toxics. I wanted to mention that we have made some changes to our program to focus on equity and how we set our research priorities and on what types of projects we fund. So more on that can be found in the Triennial Plan. And these efforts improve the science and lead to better outcomes for communities most impacted by air quality, climate, and transportation access issues. We've also made several changes to our research program processes in order to increase transparency and clarity for both the public and the researchers we work with. And this is the third year where we've held a solicitation public meeting that's intended to provide guidance for all prospective contractors for the proposals that we're looking for. We've also provided several online tools to help guide you in the application process, and we'll highlight those tools throughout the meeting and post links in the chat to find them. So please feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat and include a note if you're looking for collaborators on one of the projects we are presenting on today. We're really looking forward to this year's projects and to working with you on this research. So thank you so much. And I'll hand it back to Sonia.
Great, thank you so much, Elizabeth. All right, and some of the resources that Elizabeth mentioned, I posted links for those in the chat. So the first link is for our Triennial Plan, and the second one is for our solicitation landing page, where you can find a lot of the tools and resources that we will be discussing throughout today's meeting. All right, so the research program priorities are driven by CARB incentive and regulatory program needs. Additionally, our research priorities remain responsive to the Triennial Plan, which again is linked in the chat, as well as internal and external coordination and emerging topics, which we identify through external input and from the scientific literature. So every year, the research program funds new projects that are responsive to these identified priorities. And we have a variety of project types. Our extramural research contracts, which is what we're discussing today, consist of scientifically robust projects that are highly responsive to CARB's priorities and mission. We also fund white paper projects to collect the latest information available on emerging topics, and we fund community-driven research roadmap projects in response to community concerns. We coordinate with large external research efforts in collaboration with other state and federal agencies to make our research dollars go further. Finally, CARB experts also develop in-house projects leveraging data collected through extramural research, and we collect data, develop models, and write highly impactful scientific papers. So these projects are completed by leading scientists and community researchers in collaboration with community-based organizations, by experts in state, national, and international organizations, and by CARB staff. The research results derived through these various efforts inform CARB programs and help advance our mission to protect public health and the environment. Okay, great. So our Triennial Strategic Research Plan combines information on our past and current research projects and future research priorities. The research initiatives in this plan were developed with a public input. And this document provides a roadmap for our research. It aids us in research planning and is an important tool in our outreach efforts. We hope that our research partners and the public will find this to be a useful reference as we work to collaboratively address the research priorities described in the plan. And the plan is essential in guiding our annual selection of research projects and in delineating our new research priorities. It also identifies strategies to operationalize racial equity in CARB research. And over the past few years, we've been implementing changes to our planning process and to the types of projects we fund. So for example, we're providing more tools and transparency in the solicitation process and in project selection. We're also encouraging more multidisciplinary teams and for new researchers to join those teams. So for example, we have leveraged the Empower Innovation website to aid us in that outreach and seeking new researchers. So for Empower Innovation, this is an online platform designed specifically for the clean tech community. And it provides a great networking opportunity for individuals and organizations exploring our funding opportunities. So on Empower Innovation, you'll find a community of entrepreneurs, developers, technology adopters, and community-based organizations, as well as researchers. And you will also be able to see the latest funding announcements from the California Energy Commission and the ones from today from CARB. So use the Find a Partner feature, and that will allow you to announce your interest in a specific funding opportunity and view other interested parties to find potential partners in a trusted environment. So this year, we are soliciting pre-proposals for the 4 projects shown on the slide. These projects can be found on Empower Innovation, and the detailed requirements and project needs can be found on our solicitation landing page. And as I mentioned earlier, I provided a link to the solicitation landing page in the chat. Great, so we have several important deadlines for the solicitation that I'd like to highlight. So first of all, this year we're asking for letters of interest, and those can be emailed to us at our research email. Those are due Friday, April 28th. They're not a requirement, so you don't have to submit them. Or you can still submit a pre-proposal even if you don't submit a letter of interest, but we do highly encourage that you submit a letter of interest. All we're asking for is an email with your contact information, your affiliation. If you already know who the other members of your team will be, provide that information as well. And of course, which project you intend to submit a pre-proposal for. So that'll be really appreciated because it helps us understand and gauge the interest in each of the projects and whether we have to extend our outreach efforts on those projects. Now, the pre-proposals are due on Monday, May 22nd by 5 p.m. And again, you can email those to our research email. Once we review the pre-proposals, we will select one pre-proposal to develop for each project, one pre-proposal for each project to be developed into a full proposal, but we will contact all pre-proposal submitters on the status of their application. And then for those pre-proposals that were chosen to be developed into full proposals are due on Wednesday, July 5th. And then the kickoff for final projects, so full proposals get reviewed by our research screening committee, and then we turn them into contracts. The very earliest time that those contracts would be executed and kicked off would be probably early next year or probably a little later, actually. Okay, so on to the pre-proposal requirements. We do provide a template on our solicitation landing page, and it's really important that you use that template. We provide some some tables that we'd like you to fill out at the beginning, and in the pre-proposal, it gives you very specific instructions about what you need to provide and how long it should be. For the portion where you discuss your approach to conducting the research, that is limited to 5 pages, but all the other requirements do not count towards that 5-page limit. So just your description of how you intend to conduct the research is 5 pages. So a quick tip there, we do have detailed scope of work documents on the solicitation landing page. And also at the end, you can find the scoring criteria for each project. So it's good to look at that so that you can understand how we are judging the pre-proposals and comparing and contrasting them to each other. Another tip is to please not copy the solicitation text that we provide in the scope of work documentation online. That won't look good. We also ask for a CV or a statement of qualifications for your entire project team. Again, these portions don't count towards the 5-page limit. We ask that you describe your relevant experience. We also ask for a preliminary budget that looks very similar to this table that we're providing on the slide. You do not need to get this approved by your contracts and grants office. We wouldn't require approval until or if your pre-proposal is selected to be developed into a full proposal. And then for some of the projects, we have specific equity components. Again, that differs by project, and I'll provide a little more information about that when we get to that portion. Okay, so we do have some equity deliverables that are common to all projects. We do require that all researchers who are going to execute a contract with us take racial equity training. So for example, implicit bias training or DEIB training, whatever is provided by your institution. And this should be completed within the first few months of contract execution. We also ask for plain language outreach materials as part of the contract deliverables. And we also provide quarterly updates on our website. So this is not too much of an ask because it's integrated into our already required quarterly progress reports. We also ask for equity implications and a plain language summary in the final report once the project is nearing completion. And then if you decide to submit any of the work that comes out of this contract for peer review, we ask that those peer-reviewed articles be publicly available. So choosing journals that are open to the public is the best practice here. Finally, for all projects, we always require a final seminar, and we'll work with you to make sure that the language in your slides are geared towards a wider audience. So some projects, although none of the ones in this solicitation that we're presenting on today, do have additional deliverables. I do want to touch on them briefly, just so that everyone, because all of you very likely will work with CARB over the coming years. It's good for you to be aware of some of the additional deliverables that we sometimes ask for. For projects that require community engagement, we often ask for a community engagement plan and community peer review, as well as a cultural competency statement at the beginning of the contract or as part of the pre-proposal. So it's good to be aware that we are asking for these kinds of deliverables for projects that have especially community engagement components. And for those types of projects, we often ask you to partner with community-based organizations. All right. So moving on to some contracting requirements for the contracts that we implement in the research program. So the research program uses contracts and not grants. That is an important distinction, and it impacts the way that we structure our contracts and the projects as a whole. So our health and safety code actually requires us to look for expertise in the UC or CSUs. So the principal investigator for each of these projects needs to be a researcher from the UC or CSU, have an affiliation with a UC or a CSU. We do have an interagency agreement with the UCs and CSUs, and we have negotiated a 25% overhead rate. We have a little bit more information about this in our frequently asked question document, which is available on our solicitation landing page. So you can subcontract with any other university, a private research institution or firm, or a community-based organization. Those subcontractors can receive up to 25% of the budget or $50,000, whichever is less. And in some cases, up to 50% if it can be demonstrated that no expertise exists within the UC or CSU and that the contract requirements call for it. Okay, so you might be aware that CARB has various advisory boards. So for example, we have the Environmental Justice Advisory Committee and the AB 617 Consultation Group. We have the Scientific Toxic Review Panel and the Research Screening Committee. And more recently, we have established a Natural and Working Lands Expert Advisory Committee. For our contracts, it's really important to note that no members of any of these advisory groups can be signatories to the contract or communicate with us, CARB, regarding our decision on the contracts without significant legal risk per Government Code 87104. What that means is that you cannot collaborate with any advisory board member or even an alternate that is appointed by the CARB board. They cannot be part of your contract, and they can't talk to us on the side about your participation in the contract or influence our decision to fund you for a specific contract. So please be aware of that. If there is any kind of communication between an advisory group member and you related to this contract, then we actually would be forced to cancel that contract. So that's an example of something that could happen. So very important to check that anyone you're interested in working with is not part of these advisory boards. We have the links to these in the frequently asked questions document online. Great. So that covers the basics that apply to all of the projects that we are soliciting pre-proposals for. I want to pause here and take questions just on those contracting mechanisms or the pre-proposal requirements that would apply to all projects. After we answer some of those questions, then we'll move on to hearing from the contract managers on the individual projects. So please use the raised hand feature and let us know if you have any questions about the slides that we just presented. I'm not seeing any hands. I'm going to check the chat, but I don't see anything there either. And Elizabeth, was there anything that I missed that you might want to add while people maybe think about a question?
I don't think so. You covered everything great. Thank you.
Okay, great. All right, I don't see any questions. So I'm going to move on to the project descriptions. So I'm going to pass it over to Nezat Motalabi to present on the first project. So Nezat, take it away.
Thank you very much, Dr. Collier. For this project, I will start with a very brief introduction, why this project is important for CARB, before briefly describing the objective of this study. The severity and frequency of wildfire in Western US have been increasing over the past decade and are becoming more difficult to contain. The state of California has recognized the wildfire crisis and developed policies in response. In 2020, Governor Newsom signed an agreement with the U.S. Forest Service in which USFS and California each promised to perform 500,000 acres of fire prevention and forest management work in the state every year by 2025. The state of California also created the Wildfire and Forest Resilience Task Force and released its action plan, which is a comprehensive framework for increasing both community and ecological resilience to wildfire in California. The action plan called specifically on CARB to lead the interagency analysis of prescribed fire smoke data as compared with wildfire smoke exposure. However, data for such analysis are not readily available. Hence, overall objective of this project are to collect detailed ambient air quality data, including criteria pollutant and air toxic in downwind community when the area is influenced by wildfire smoke, and to develop and execute modeling scenario to predict the air quality impact of prescribed burning activity that would have been used to treat vegetation fuel in the area affected by the wildfire. The contractor will analyze the measurement data and modeling result to draw conclusion about the potential air quality benefit and trade-off of prescribed burning activities. And they will compare result to the unplanned wildfire and wildfire modified by pre-fire fuel treatment that occurs upwind of the population center. Overall, from this project, the science-based recommendation will inform regional strategies that improve the community fire resilience plan. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Nizam. So we will continue to move through the projects, and then we'll save time at the end to answer questions on any of the projects. But you can also put your questions about a specific project in the chat, and our contract managers will be monitoring the chat and answering those questions in the chat if they can. Okay, next I'm going to hand the mic over to Nicole Hernandez to talk about our health analysis and natural and working lands management scenarios project.
Thanks, Sonia. This project will support CARB's natural and working lands policies, which are an important component in helping the state achieve its carbon neutrality goals. Effective land management strategies promote healthy lands, which maximizes their ability to sequester and store carbon and limit the release of future GHG emissions. Natural and working land management also provides additional co-benefits, which includes benefits to public health. In the 2022 scoping plan, future health impacts such as mortality, respiratory, and cardiovascular endpoints were quantified for various land management scenarios to reduce future wildfire PM2.5 emissions. CARB's analysis showed that increasing specific forest and land management actions reduces wildfire emissions and avoids PM2.5 emission-related health effects when compared to business as usual. The goal of this project is to build upon this work to improve future analyses by expanding CARB's ability to calculate the air quality and health benefits of future natural and working lands management scenarios that will reduce emissions from wildfire. The contractor will work closely with CARB to develop a modeling approach or build off existing modeling frameworks to calculate statewide PM2.5 concentrations at high spatial and temporal resolutions from future wildfire emission scenarios provided by CARB. It is important that the modeling methods are streamlined to accommodate many potential future scenarios with reasonable runtimes, while sensitive enough to assess differences across all scenarios. From the developed air quality outputs, the contractor will provide methods that can quantify the health impacts of all scenarios annually from 2025 to 2045 at statewide, regional, and sub-regional levels. The study will provide updated health effect estimates for wildfire PM2.5 and identify new health endpoints to be included. The methods will allow for the health impacts to be analyzed by race and ethnicity and other vulnerable groups to determine which areas and populations in California will experience the greatest health benefits and impacts from natural working lands management. Overall, this methodology will better quantify how resilient landscapes can reduce the amount and intensity of wildfire emissions and reduce health impacts.
Thank you so much, Nicole. So again, if you have a question about this project, please put it in the chat. But we will also reserve time at the end of the presentations to answer questions on any of the projects. Next, I'm going to pass the mic over to Fengqiao Su, and she will be presenting on the impacts of multiple climate change stressors on health in California.
Okay. Thank you, Sonia. Hi, everyone. I'm Feng Chao. I'm an air pollution specialist in CARB's research division. I will introduce this project related to climate change research. Climate change is considered the greatest threat to global public health. In California, we have seen more frequent and severe extreme weather events, such as wildfires impacting the public. There is an array of health studies on health impact and individual climate stressors. However, the cumulative impact of multiple climate stressors are under-examined. Reduction of the health impact of climate change is an important focus for CARB, along with adopting regulation to reduce greenhouse gas and achieve carbon neutrality. Many of these same strategies also enhance community resilience. In CARB's 2020 Scoping Plan Health Appendix, we analyze qualitative impacts from climate change on health and qualitative benefits of actions to reduce greenhouse gas. This study will build on this previous work and will help us better understand and communicate the of climate impact in vulnerable communities. Understanding the overall impact of climate change on health, the community that are most impacted will be important to help focus the programs of CARB to address vulnerabilities in those communities. Therefore, the goal for this project is to estimate the cumulative and interactive health impact of multiple climate stressors, including but not limited to heat, air pollution, wildfires, and droughts, and social determinants of health. Since the state of California includes areas that are impacted by different climate stressors, it will be important to conduct this study in multiple regions of the state. Our main desired outcome from this project include assessment of the most dominant and impactful climate stressors on health and their interaction and distribution among racial ethnic groups within different regions of California, and development of region-specific health impact estimate for the dominant climate stressors and associated health and economic impact estimation if possible. CARB will use the result of this project to deepen and broaden our understanding of cumulative climate health risks in California. This project will expand CARB's ability to analyze health effect of climate actions and help inform CARB's programs and policies on the health and equity impacts from multiple climate stressors. We anticipate that this project will be complete in 24 months, which is 2 years, from the start date with a budget of $500,000. This concludes my brief introduction of this project. Now I will hand it over back to Sonia. Thank you.
Thank you, Feng Chao. Great. So again, if you have a question about this project, you can start by adding it in the chat, but we will reserve time at the end to answer questions as well. All right, for our final project presentation, I'm going to hand it over to Ninh Ong to talk about health and economic benefits of cancer risk reduction.
Thank you, Sonia. CARB is working on a project to better understand and quantify, where possible, the broad health impacts of air pollution, including air toxins. This work includes adding more health outcomes to our quantitative health analysis of criteria pollutants and evaluating additional pollutants, including toxic pollutants. CARB health analysis work informs our regulatory action and program to reduce air pollution. CARB regulates toxic air contaminants to protect public health through air toxic control measure by reducing statewide or regional exposure to air toxic sources. For many of CARB regulation, cancer risks are expressed as potential cancer risk per million individual exposed based on OEHR's health risk assessment methodologies. The benefit of reducing exposure to carcinogenic toxic air pollutants are presented in terms of cancer risk reduction. In some cases, the cancer risk reduction is presented along with additional health analysis of criteria pollutants effects. While CARB has established methodology for estimating and evaluating health benefits of PM2.5 reductions in terms of reduced cases of illness and death, it does not have such methodology for air toxic associated cancer risk reductions. Therefore, the main goal of the project is to develop a methodology to evaluate and quantify cancer health outcome resulting from action that reduce exposure to toxic air pollutants. CARB desired outcomes include first, identification of major cancer types associated with California relevant toxic air pollutants. For example, diesel particulate matter, benzene, 1,3-butadiene, and hexavalent chromium. And then development of a methodology to convert cancer risk to possible cancer cases. Finally, establishment of valuation method for direct medical and hospitalization costs and other costs related to cancer cases. The result of this study could be used by CARB in current and future programs and regulation to evaluate health benefit of reduced air toxics by estimating valuation per unit reduction in cancer risk. If you have any question, please email me at ninaon@arb.ca.gov. Thank you for your attention. Now I will hand over to Sonia. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ninan. All right, everyone. So we're going to open up the floor to questions. If you would like to ask a question of any of our contract managers and subject matter experts, please start with giving us your name, your affiliation, which project you're interested in. And if you are looking for collaborators, it's a good time to mention that in case you might make connections here in the meeting. So are there any questions from the audience? Please use the raise hand feature. Jason Su, go ahead.
Hey, Tanya, thank you for your time, and also the CARB, the staff and the administrator over there for the detailed introduction of the projects. So we actually had some conversations about the solicitations with Michael Jerry's research group. So we'll have different efforts and different aspects. But I can go probably one by one. Some probably Dr. is over there, but not all other collaborators. For can you go back to the last one? I want to go backwards probably. Okay, for this one, so do you want it? I still want to get a clear answer from you. So you want to convert cancer risk to possible cancer cases. So you basically, you want it to have the impact of air toxics on incidence of different types of cancers, right? Is that the main impact of air pollution you want to see? Because, okay, now for me, what I was thinking, okay, you have the impact of air pollution incidence of the different major types of cancer for different air toxic. Then you, based on the risk, right, and also the population, and then you can estimate possible cancer cases. But after that being estimated, you may estimate like how many population would have cancer due to air pollution. Then after that, you have the ED visits, hospitalizations, and all those medical costs plus those indirect costs like the loss of productivity. So was that the route COP wants to go, or COP wants to say, okay, do you want to have interest like progression from due to air pollution? You already develop the cancer. Due to air pollution, you will progress from have the concept to ED visits, but also probability of hospitalization and also probability of death. So I just wanted to see what's COP's focus on this. Maybe Ning
Nin or Heyun could answer
Heyun.
the question. Yeah, Heyun.
Hi, Jason. So you're asking.
So I'm asking basically the first thing you do, we propose to do is the impact of air pollution on incidence of the cancer. So you kind of have different types of cancers, right? You use that if you only use that as a base, okay, and then use for the cancer patients, we can base on not statistic, based on the historical data, say, okay, how many cancer patients went to ED visits, how many went to hospitalizations, how many died, and those costs, right? Then that way, those costs are not as, we're only dealing with the cost associated with incidence, but not the actual progression from one stage to another. So due to air pollution. So I just want to know which one you want to focus for the impact of air pollution outcome. Is that the incidence or progression?
Actually, Jason, first part, this project, we really wanted to expand our own risk assessment methodology based on OHIA's approach. So we are developing health risk assessment methodology. And so for each chemical of air toxics, they listed the potency factor, and then they provide the excessive health risk out of cancer per million. So that's their risk assessment methodology. But the problem is they don't have the valuation attached to that methodology. That's why we wanted to do. And so for you, going back to your question, we are interested in both incidence and progression. But maybe Patrick can come from this response. Patrick?
Yes, yeah, we've been kind of talking about that. I think, thanks, Dr. Su, for breaking it down. And actually, I think you do need both. We need, normally what we will be given for each air toxic is additional cancer risks per million people exposed. But then there is a gap to get from that perceived additional cancer risk to possible incidences. So that is one part which we would like PI to discuss the different methodologies for that. Once you do have the incidences, then of course you look at all the different type of valuation points that you're looking at, what type of medical parts, ED visits, hospitals, anything involved. So it does kind of, we are looking for someone to do both parts.
Yeah, so that would be interesting, but there's one challenge for researchers is, okay, so if you have a cancer registry, so you have the time you develop cancer, you have the birth cohort, so you have the information on the birth, but then you also need to link to the clinical data or claims data in that way. Otherwise, data won't be complete because you won't be able to model the progression. If you want to model progression, that would be, you need to have those ED visit, hospitalization, and also mortality data all needed to be linked together.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Thank you. Would it be fun?
Can I just
It's challenging.
can I just add one comment?
Go ahead, Bonnie.
Yeah, no, I just really appreciate the discussion and agree with it. But I just would say, like with all of these proposals, we have some flexibility in that we want to see how you would do this project. So I think there's some openness to you know, what you would propose, the approach that you would suggest taking. Clearly, while you know, to us this is a lot of money, I know it is a limited amount. So we're asking, what is your best approach to do this? And I think ideally, yes, ideally we would like to include as many of these costs as possible, ideally, including progression. But again, you know, we're asking what would your best approach be given, limited resources? How could you best do this? So there's some flexibility there.
Yeah, Bonnie, I don't want to waste too much of time, but please cut me off, okay, if I'm taking too much time. If for a very simple story would be, okay, you have the birth cohort, okay, you also have cancer registries, and you can identify when people get the cancer. So you can identify based on the history of the participants, then you can identify the exposure. So a very easy way is to identify the incidence of cancer due to air pollution. This can be done statewide. So once that is done, it's a very simple way. Okay, you have the impact of air pollution. Over here, air pollution is cancer risk, is the air toxics, and the cancer incidence. So that's one. And we have, of course, we can have different type of cancers, but based on those ones, then we can just shift that, use that cancer risk due to air pollution, shift totally to economic analysis side of the story based on the cancer type of the patients, different age groups. So what is economic cost for each of them, for ED visits, hospitalizations, and also death probably. So for the first part is the only identifies the impact of air pollution from air toxics on death. No, sorry for the impact of air toxics on the incidence of cancer. Then after that, you shift all the analysis to economic analysis. That one would be the most simple solution, easiest way. You could cover the entire California. For us to also can derive like different race ethnicity groups, because the cancer registry for each patient have the race ethnicity information. So you could, the model, you can do stratification to different race ethnicity groups. In that way, okay, once you have that done, you can convert very high resolution to the census tract level based on race ethnicity composition. So you could do the EJ analysis part very good. But that one doesn't include any progression. Progression would be have to merge multiple data sets from statewide. That might be only challenging. Not the analysis part might be either some, but it's a challenging stuff is to get different data sources from the state. That might be a big challenge.
Right, understood, and that's why I wanted to just say there's, we're looking for your best approach as to how you could do this with the resources and the tools that you have.
Okay, thank you. We might be able to explore, also talk to state agency for holding those data sets to see how possible to request those data sets. Thank you.
Thanks for your interest.
Yeah. Our group, I think, I'm not sure Dr. Jared is over here, have certain interests on different aspects. Another one is the, Sonia, can you move to the wildfire? Okay, so, yeah, for this one, so were you trying to say, okay, now this place have wildfires, right? Were you wanting to see a scenario that if that wildfire didn't happen, but instead we have prescribed burnings happened ahead, what would be the scenario, or what would be the actual impact? I mean, the impact of prescribed burning ahead and the wildfire happened after. So you want to see the improvement of air quality due to prescribed burning for the same location where those places have wildfires. One of the scenarios.
Neva, go ahead and if you have a response, please go ahead.
I try to respond it. I believe that the scope of the work described the scenario very clearly, and basically, especially Cal Fire, in response to the new bill, they are planning to have that the half-acre, burning annually until 2025. And they already creating some kind of the mapping, area, and also there's some management, plan or so that they basically are defining, as I mentioned it during my brief, talk, that they that deal with the treatment of the vegetation fuel in the area affected. So that's why, especially on the task 1, I said that the main, part would be really doing the literature review and having a good understanding of what's happening, already, or what the people did it, and also collaborate with the CARB and Cal Fire on the design of the study and the scenario or those things. So, very briefly, yes, there are plans for the designating area and doing that. That massive amount of the actually is more than half-acre, because some of the area has to be burned in the multiple time or so. So that's what we try to do, the comparison between the, like business as usual, when the wildfire happened, without any, vegetation or the forest, management, versus the one that is already, if the wildfire, extend to the area that it's already gone through those forest, management and treatment, and what would be the overall trade-off, and what would be level of the air pollution.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. That was very useful. So if for location you have forest management, your prescribed burnings, but for the scenarios, you also probably wanted to, okay, as management, I might not, because the wildfires happen, sometimes have the dramatic impact for downwind, right? Those are the, because the downwind sometimes is even so severe, you want to have a scenario, even though you've gone through the forest management or prescribed burnings, you still wanted to probably burn it at a different time, right? That the wind direction might be different, and the impact on the downwind might be much smaller. So you want to have those kind of scenarios too?
Well, that's what I really like to wait to see what's being proposed. I'm following the literature, and even I have a different project on the, wildfire that's going to be completed, in a few months. So, and basically there are the scenario there. I really rather at this stage, wait to see what the experts that they are familiar with this type of the things, and I'm following their literature, what they're going to come back and propose to us. So I don't want to, specifically define any hypothesis or scenario, because the task 1 and task 2 that specifically ask that we would like to see those lists of the, scenario, those designing of the hypothesis, and how the investigator would go forward to basically respond or provide the information to meet the overall goal of the study and also respond to their own hypothesis or the design of the study. So with respect to the scenario, I know probably more than me that there are many different cases that can be listed and considered, and I'm looking forward to responses to see how they're gonna, propose and move forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you everyone for that discussion on those two projects. Are there any other questions in the room on any of the other projects or follow-up to those two projects? Michael Jarrett, go ahead.
Hi, thanks for all the informative commentary on the various projects. I just wanted to check on the cumulative effects project. That you mentioned that this was to build on an existing contract or some existing work. And I was wondering if we could get more information on that existing work so we could better understand how we could advance it.
Hongqiao, go ahead.
Yes, we mentioned this will be built on our qualitative analysis in CARB's 2022 scoping plan. I can definitely provide a link of that document. Maybe Barbara. I'm sorry?
So this is more of a qualitative analysis that you did, so you wanted to follow up with quantitative estimates.
Yes and no, because if in our scope of work, we don't have a specific like this will be qualitative or quantitative. You can do both. You can do like a semi-qualitative or semi-quantitative. We are looking forward to see what kind of proposal we will receive, and maybe Bonnie or my manager Barbara can chip in.
Right. Hi, this is Barbara Weller. Hi, Mike. And yeah, we really are looking to see what people can come up with. If people can go to qualitative or quantitative or a measure of both. So we're not really stressing that. What we are kind of stressing is that we want this to be combined effects, to look at combined effects. And even the combined effects that we are suggesting, those are not a limitation. So, if investigators want to think outside the box and think of other factors besides, heat, air pollution, wildfire, and drought, we're open to that. And we just want to see what people can kind of come up with. So in the scoping plan, as you know, it was sort of topic by topic. And this is looking at things with a combination of factors, because obviously that is the way people experience climate effects, is in a combination. So we're just interested really to see what people can come up with. And we just want to make sure that people think about different regions of California, because obviously different regions of California would have different climate stressors that would impact them, more than others.
Okay, thank you.
And this is Bonnie Holmstead. I would just add that our public health analysis that Barbara and Feng Chao referred to, as they mentioned, was qualitative and was more focused on a statewide level. And this project is more focused on looking at different climate stressors in regional contexts. So there's a difference there.
Thanks again.
Mike, we also mentioned today during our meetings, so about these are the stresses, but also some of the beneficial facts, like the vegetations, right? Should the vegetation, like those beneficial factors, be incorporated into this to compensate the stresses?
Well, I think we were mainly thinking about stressors for this, but, obviously, we don't want to limit the investigators and what you come up with. So, you know, I think it's looking at that combination of effects. So probably, you know, if you're looking at something that's beneficial, it's going to be beneficial to a certain stressor, right? So, you know, you're still going to probably be looking at a combination of stressors.
Okay, thank you.
Chen, I see your hand.
Hi, this is Chen. I'm thanks for having me. I actually have I'm a postdoc scholar in UCSD. I actually have a follow-up question. So kind of clarification. So first is, for this climate change stressor study, do you guys, for the second aim where we want to do exposure assessment for compound stressors, so do you want to mostly focus on previous stressors, or you would also consider, you know, incorporating climate change scenarios and making projections for the future? So this is my first question. The second one is kind of follow up on the discussion of combined effect. Sounds like you guys are focusing on the combined effect of multiple environmental stressors, but for the health outcomes, you know, it could be hospitalization for cardiovascular disease, it could be premature death, it could also be heat-related health outcomes. There might be, you know, like a competing risk among these health outcomes. It could also be kind of synergistic effect just within the health outcomes. Is that something you guys are also interested in? So, thank you.
Feng Chao, can you help answer the question?
Yes, I will try my best. Okay, so the first question is about the scenario. The answer is no, we don't ask to estimate the scenario. So in this project, we are more interested in the health impact of cumulative effects. So if you mean scenarios, means some prediction of the future climate condition, the answer is no, we don't ask for prediction. And the second question is the health outcomes. So in our scope of work, we didn't identify any specific health outcome. And because as you said, there are multiple health outcomes, so we would like to explore what kind of health outcome the investigators can propose. And of course, as more as merit, but just I also understand that depends on what kind of data set the investigators can obtain.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any additional questions?
I kind of have another one, if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Jen.
Yeah, so for this same project, you guys also mentioned that you want to focus on how the interaction and the stressors as well as its health outcomes are distributed among racial and ethnic subgroups. So I'm wondering if that's the only, you know, subgroups you're interested in, or you're more like open to potential suggestions based on the researchers.
Because if you look the overall objective, we actually want to see how the health impact from multiple climate stressors interact with social determinant of health. And of course, the most social determinant of health we are interested will be racial ethnic subgroup. But we also open to other social determinant if the investigators can obtain this data, this kind of data set, because we don't have any specific data set in mind yet until we see the proposal, right?
Thank you for those questions. Are there any other questions? I'll give it a minute here or less. So just note to everyone that Feng Chao did share the link to the scoping plan appendix related to health. If you need that resource. Thank you, Feng Chao. I'm not seeing any hands or any additional questions in the chat. So again, I'll just do a quick reminder here of the most important dates. We are requesting that interested researchers who intend to submit a pre-proposal to please let us know through the letter of interest request. All we need is an email with your name, affiliation, and which project you're interested in. That'll be very helpful for us. It's not an absolute requirement. You can still submit a pre-proposal even if you don't submit a letter of interest. But if you do submit a letter of interest, that helps us understand the interest in each of the projects. Pre-proposals are due Monday, May 22nd by 5 p.m. All of the requirements can be emailed to us. And the pre-proposal template, again, is on our solicitation landing page. So yeah, those are the two first important dates. And then the rest of the information you can find on our solicitation landing page.
Sonia, one basic question. Do you need to, for the letter of interest, do you need to include the key investigators possible? Because sometimes you want to see the area of the research that match what you're looking for, right?
Right. If you have a team or a prospective team, that's great information for us to have, but it's not an absolute necessity. Just the PI, like the minimum that we would like to see is the PI, their affiliation, and which project they're intending to submit a pre-proposal for. If you do have the information on additional team members, that's great, but it's not an absolute requirement.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we will post the recording of this meeting on our solicitation landing page. These slides, an ADA compliant version, PDF version of these slides are also available now. And I also recommend that you look at the frequently asked questions document and the pre-proposal template. All three of those documents are available now on our pre-proposal template, our solicitation landing page, which is linked in the chat. If there's no other questions, we can end the meeting here.
Thank you. Thank you for organizing this.
Yeah, absolutely. And yes, I will repost the link right now before we sign off. So I just reposted the project solicitation landing page.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you everyone for joining the meeting and for being engaged in our research process. We hope to hear from all of you soon, letting us know that you're interested in submitting a pre-proposal.
Well, thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.